My camera's been acting really dumb, and apparently some update makes it so that if it's recording, there's like an ongoing flashing red light. You think I'm not easily distracted, I can tell. Let me just put like my notes or something over it because, I'm a cat. I can't focus on more than one thing at a time. Come on now. Hi, it's Kendall here. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, home skillet biscuit? Happy Saturday. If you don't know what Saturday is, it's when I do something called Bat Movies in a Beat. This series on my channel where I talk about bad movies while putting my makeup on. We got a doozy this week. It's the first movie in a while I've watched that literally made my head hurt, like made it pulsate from the inside. Ripe for content. That's what we're here for. But of course, before we get started on that, we gotta send it over to that bro Kennie so she can keep the lights on, baby. Bills. Hello everyone, this is Admiral Kennie, and today's video is sponsored by the Farmer's Dog. Oh yeah, we're putting Russ to work. It's about time she brought a bag into this house. I'm joking, all she has to do is sit there and eat delicious food. Oh, the struggle she lives. The Farmer's Dog delivers healthy, real food for your canine friend, or in my case, my child. I would rain down hellfire for her. And so she deserves healthy food. I just couldn't imagine that every meal being kibble would be healthy for her, and so we have not been doing that. I've given her other fresh food, and it's so expensive. Oh my God. And also still looks very processed, even though it's supposed to be fresh food. But the Farmer's Dog looks like food made from whole meat, real veggies, gently cooked in human grade kitchens in order to preserve the ingredients' nutritional value. You just go online, answer some questions about your particular dog, their breed, size, age, activity levels, and such, and they will personalize the particular size and amount that you need for your particular dog. The meals arrive pre-portioned and on your schedule, and they're delivered to your door, which is the best part. I get so tired of going to buy dog food. She's this big. I am constantly buying dog food. And now I'm able to get a shipment for her, and I just have it, and we don't think about it, and she's happy and I'm happy. I got 3 flavors. She's only tried the beef so far, but there's a beef recipe, a pork recipe, and a chicken recipe. I'm sure she's gonna love the other ones as well. And the Farmer's Dog just makes it easier than ever to invest in my dog's health, so she's happy, and she's playing, and she's rambunctious for many, many years to come. So if you would like to try out the Farmer's Dog, you can check them out using my link down below and get 50% off your first box, plus free shipping. Big thanks again to the Farmer's Dog for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. I also bought some new makeup because I obviously need to buy makeup. Oh, Danessa Myrix. Come hither. I really like your products and you should send me free stuff. Just a thought, just a flirtation. I would really like that if you just want to know how to make me happy. Anyway, last time we were here, we talked about Beautiful Disaster. Beautiful Disaster is very aptly named, I gotta say that. It's the movie with Dylan Sprouse, where he's allowed to play his own bad boy instead of being like a supporting cast for one of the After movies. It's made by the same people that made After, and it is an absolute mess, and I loved it. It's a comedic goldmine, super memeable, dumb. It's stupid as shit. And I saw that some people have watched the movie off of my recommendation and then had the nerve to say, Kendall, this movie's horrible. Duh. But anyway, if you'd like to check out that video, you can check it out up above, or you can check it out in the Bat Movies and a Beat playlist. So this week, this week's movie was kind of a last minute addition to this week. I actually got this recommendation from someone that replied to me on Twitter after I said I craved chaos. It's just something I do periodically as an Aries moon. Sometimes I just want destruction. It's hard to explain. I just get in these moods when I want to watch something just awful, just a mess. Confusing, infuriating. It's usually when I bring up something from Tubi or something from the Philippines. Like, the Philippines is really good at making a really messy drama. And sometimes you just want to see some chaos, you know? Oh, wait, isn't it API Appreciation History month. I'm so sorry. I should have did something in really... Well, then again, every time I do movies from Asia, they always copyright. Damn you, CJ. But someone who saw my post asking for chaos said, have you watched the movie The Strays? The Strays, 2023. So it came out like in February, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Netflix original movie about a light-skinned black woman in England who has a very notable and distinct fear of unambiguously black people after she moves into an affluent all-white neighborhood. That sounds really dumb, but I could see it also being done in a way that has something very poignant and interesting to say about colorism. So I was like, let me not, maybe there's something that they're actually trying to make a point of and people are going too hard on it because it's almost comical that a black woman would be afraid of blackness, even though it happens all the time, particularly lighter skinned people who are closer in proximity to whiteness. Some may feel that it's just easier to kind of bemoan the parts of them that are closer to blackness as a means to social mobility. So I wanted to give it a chance. Maybe it had something to say. It might be cooking. It is possible. Granted, it's not necessarily always just lighter skinned people, but them being lighter skin allows them to have that kind of wiggle room. So I was like, okay, let me watch the trailer. Maybe. I watched the trailer. It's definitely giving Us. But make it about class and colorism. If you've never seen Jordan Peele's Us, I did a poll on Twitter because I was curious what everyone's favorite Jordan Peele movie is. Why was Us on the bottom? I think Us is amazing. Why am I the only person that's like, Us is the best one? Personally, it's Us, Get Out, and then Nope. But a lot of people like Nope. I've only seen Nope once. I wasn't a huge fan. But maybe it was something I was missing from one watch, so maybe it's something that I need to watch more than once. I think that this movie is definitely taking a lot from Us and Get Out for its, like, referencing. I could see it undermining the work a little bit because Us and Get Out didn't come out that long ago. Like, it'd be different if the movies were significantly older, but they came out less than 10 years ago. Now, being that I really love Us, I was curious how adding the element of colorism would work in this context. Because if you've never seen Us, it's families that are identical, but one is the haves and one is the have-nots. And the haves only have because someone has not. It's a very, like, anxious and guilty story about capitalism and what that means and a bunch of other, like, social, economic topics. What is the cost of having? And so this movie discusses that, but does so in a way that brings in the context of colorism. And so when I went into the movie, I went in feeling a little, maybe a bit more generous. Again, I was trying to say, hey, they might be cooking. They might have something to say. I didn't think she was literally gonna be afraid of dark-skinned people. I thought it was more like metaphorical. You know what I mean? The dark-skinned people that she's running from don't even exist, really, maybe. It's just more so like, despite her best efforts to purge herself of blackness by, you know, speaking differently, wearing her hair differently, moving to a new town, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to her interactions with white society, there is always the looming ghost of her blackness that haunts every interaction. And though that is certainly a part of this movie, it's a very large part of this movie. It's kind of empathetic criticism towards the main character for being so desperate to separate and assimilate for survival. I just didn't expect her to be running from actual black people. Like, she ends up being afraid of blackness for reasons that are very, very, very specific to her and indicative of like a larger problem of colorism, right? And for some reason, detaching it from the broader system of colorism, racism, white supremacy, or at least its attempts to, moves this movie into something uncanny valley, something very, very stupid, and ultimately really obfuscates what are you trying to say? Like, when we start off the movie, it feels like we know what the movie's trying to say, like colorism is bad. But by the time we get to the end, I don't entirely know what the movie's trying to say. The black people she's afraid of end up being shown possibly because they're a projection of her own anxieties and guilt and whatnot, as these kind of like degenerate monsters, criminals, in a way, demons that haunt her.
I did not finish that thought. Okay, if you're trying to say colorism is bad, it's probably not the best time to go in and say how stereotypically bad these dark-skinned black people are.
The movie tried so hard to say something, and there are glimpses of something there. Again, it exists in this very like uncanny valley space where it was almost a good movie, but in some ways that makes it worse. And again, could have been something to be said about maybe the anxieties of black middle class and ways in which there's this pull to believe that to be closer to higher class is to be closer to whiteness and therefore farther away from blackness. The anxieties of perhaps making that ascension, like what does that really mean? And I think it tried to do that. I think it attempts to play around with that idea, but it's not good. It falls apart. By the time it gets to the end, it's lost all focus and it just becomes this bewildering mess. By the end of the movie, you just sit there and it's like, why did you make this? It's so bad, but it's so hard to express why this movie is so bad. Perhaps what I need is to film this video for my own sanity, because maybe, you know, through the course of working through this, I'll be able to reach a conclusion on why this movie is such a mess. So, without further ado, this is the STRAYS 2023. The movie begins with a very large, wide shot of an apartment complex, and a woman is complaining and crying to her sister about how she just can't keep living the way that she's living. She works so hard. She does everything she can. She's the highest salesperson at her company, and she's still just barely scraping by. The people she works with, they treat her like she's scum on their shoe. She feels like everyone's always looking down on her. Why shouldn't I want more than this? Am I wrong for wanting more than this? Her sister kind of tells her like, hey, you're dealt the cards you're dealt, man, and chastises her and her partner for spending too much money living quote unquote fancy off of them credit cards. It would seem our main character is at her wit's end. She even contemplates taking her own life. But at the last moment, she decides to write a letter to her family to tell them that she is on her way to the hairdresser's, but instead she packs all of her things, never to return again. Fast forward several years, and we are then shown a very affluent white neighborhood. You know it's posh because the moment they start showing it, they play opera, I believe something from Madame Butterfly, as they show each of the rooms of the expensive home. The title card says Neve, as we see our main character Neve practicing her posh accent to speak with her neighbors.
Wonderful morning, isn't it?
Wonderful morning, isn't it? Isn't it just?
She's quite a wealthy woman now, and you can tell by her need to do a gala at her home, a charity gala for Gambian children in need of assistance for ailments and other disabilities. She has 2 children, one, a daughter named Mary, who we meet at her job at a local bakery. When Neve sees her daughter, she notes immediately that her hair is a bit too ethnic. She was playing around with her baby hairs, and which is too close to the remnant blackness that she has and thus will not do. She very subtly vocalizes her disapproval by saying that she will buy Mary some expensive shampoo to give her a nice pamper day to wash her hair out. She also has a son named Sebastian, whom she's very quick to throw away his Lil Wayne poster as, again, it is too close to remnant blackness. In regards to the baby hairs comment, though, there are several hair-related signs that Neve is deeply uncomfortable with her blackness, like we needed more. Her blackness is represented by a persistent itch that she has in the nape of her neck, her senses, if you will. She'll get an itch in her kitchen whenever the ghosts appear. But despite her aversions to blackness, her children still seem interested to have some level of connection to it. but they've just elected to hide it from their mother. The daughter, Mary, has a pick. Ain't nothing more black than a pick. But she has this incredibly privileged life. But again, somewhat like a, I don't know, like a shadow, a black omen. There seems to be a dark-skinned black man following her, but he seems to show up kind of everywhere and disappears like a phantom afterwards. Is he real? Is he a figment of her imagination? Regardless, he ends up distracting her enough that she ends up getting in a crash while driving home. But it's nothing they have to worry about too much. Her husband works in insurance, and he says he'll figure it out. He also ends up mentioning that they hired a new girl at his insurance office. A black girl. Block? No. But her ears definitely perk up at the concept of them hiring a black girl. She asks what her name is. He says her name is Abigail. But no, all jokes aside, whenever there's any mention of black people or blackness, the concept that there may exist black people in anywhere near the proximity of her or her family, she is like at attention. It's almost parody. Is this a real movie? And it is. Like, it's so strange. But in a weird way, the movie being completely sincere is what makes it that much funnier. But I digress. Okay, back to hair-related trauma. Her husband tries to touch her hair while they have a very unpleasant looking sex. And afterwards, he's like, you know I like your natural hair, right? You don't have to wear the wigs. But she's like, okay, well, thank you for your input, but I'm wearing my hair like this for maintenance. But while driving her kids to school the next day, she sees that someone had drawn 2 black stick figures of a boy and a girl on her driver's side window. She asked her son if he had drawn it because he's a bit of a troublemaker, and he's like, no, I didn't do it. So when they get to the parking lot of their very, very, very prestigious private school, Neve just scrubs the black smears off of her driver's side. She actually works at the private school that her children attend, deputy head mistress of the school. She seems to be quite a decorated participant of the staff, but it would seem that the school has recently made a new hire, a new janitor, a dark-skinned black man. And of course, Neve is immediately anxious about it. She sees this janitor talking to her son, and that is just an absolute no-go. So she calls him away from the man and says to keep his phone on in case she needs to get a hold of him. But when she goes to find the man again, he's disappeared again like a phantom in the night. Later, she ends up seeing Sebastian walking out into the courtyard, and her instinct tells her that she should go after him. When she sees him in the woods, he's holding a cigarette and throws it away quickly, trying to hide it from her. And Neve immediately is like, that black dude gave you the cigarette, didn't he? Even though she has no evidence, he's not there. But at the end of the day, Neve, while driving Mary to her friend's house, starts to kind of lose it a bit. She sees a flash of a dark-skinned black girl on the street, nearly crashes into another car again, seems to really be struggling with one hell of a itchy scalp. She seems drawn and distracted. She hangs out with her white friends as they theorize this new phenomenon they come around called white flight. She's just not able to participate in the conversation very much. And she starts to, for all accounts, imagine this dark-skinned black man outside of her house again, because apparently nobody else seems to see him but her, right? Now, this is where I was like, so the black dude isn't real, right? Because remember, if you recall in the beginning of this video, I was saying like, if they're not real black people and it's just like the ghost of her blackness following her around, if we're talking about how she will always be non-white, that her blackness, no matter how diminutive, is going to follow her wherever she goes. So I thought, again, it was supposed to be more like metaphorical, theoretical, not like an actual dude, because again, nobody sees him. But no, he's a real guy. Spoiler. So the fact that he's like dematerializing like some kind of phantom, like the white people can't even see the is crazy to me. Maybe that was supposed to be the talking point. I don't know. Anyway, speaking of blackness and her anxieties around it, it would seem that blackness, regardless of how far away she wants her children to stay away from it, is continuing to corrupt the youth. Her daughter comes home with braids, and it would seem that this is the first time she's ever had her hair like this. The white friends, I guess, compliment her, whatever you can call this.
Oh, it's very, very...
Ethnic.
Barry, really?
Her father says that it suits her. And it would also seem that their son Sebastian hasn't returned from his basketball game yet. And she's starting to begin to get very, very worried. She feels like someone's trying to do harm to their family, that they're under attack by the Negro menace. But eventually Sebastian does come home, and Neve ends up losing her mind, attacking him with a shoe, and then sends him upstairs. That night, she has a nightmare, as if the walls were cracking at their seams, that her own hair was attacking her from inside her scalp, and that the TV is now a tube television, only playing videos of a little black girl on her birthday. She awakes in the middle of the night, short of breath. The next day, she goes into the headmaster's office and demands that they fire the black janitor because he had given her son cigarettes. So she says, even though she didn't see him do it. And the headmaster is like, I don't want to be too rash on getting rid of anybody because it could look like we're discriminating. Agitated but defeated, Neve concedes and says, fine, we can just give him a formal warning. Later that day, there's a fire alarm that results in all the kids having to leave the building. We never find out what exactly caused it, but we can suggest that maybe Sebastian had something to do with it, as he is seen running from the school. Neve, having to do her final checks to make sure everyone has gotten out, ends up in the boys' bathroom where she sees the black man. He confronts her, saying, you tried to get me fired. You tried to erase me and Dione. We thought you were dead. And I'm like, what? No, it's not me. I'm not her. And runs out. It is now the day of the gala. And she's happy to announce the charity, invite everyone to her beautiful home to get them to give money to charity, but more importantly, to make her look like a good person. They bring the children of the school to come up and sing an ode to a dead man's soul. And as they sing, it would seem that the Black Omen, the Black Death, had made their way to the gala. And Neve loses her mind. She berates them, saying nobody wants you here. You're poisoning the place. Going full Karen with a tan, until the man eventually screams, mother. We didn't see that coming. I did. That is the end of Act 1. You see, this movie has several chapters, and you're in for a wild ride. You're welcome. Act 2. This is the tale of Dione and Carl, these two black people. 5 days prior, Carl and Dione had made their way into the city, looking to find Neve. They had seen a picture of her in the paper and had deduced that that was indeed their mother. They check into the hotel, pay in cash to stay a week, and very quickly you can notice that Dione and Carl are notably strange. They're very mechanical, short on words, stiff. Dione in particular is a bit childlike and stunted. We'll get to my thoughts on all of that later. But they get jobs really quickly in close proximity to Neve and her family. Dione begins working at her husband's insurance company. Carl begins working as a janitor at the school she works at. Now, in this chapter, we slowly retrace how Dione and Carl have woven themselves into Neve's life. Dione had creepily followed Mary home one day and had immediately sparked up a friendship very strangely and had given her a pic as sort of a memento of their first meeting. Dione also tells Mary that she works at her father's insurance company. She also introduced herself as Abby instead of Dione. And Carl begins to swiftly become a sibling to Sebastian, like a bigger brother, because they are brothers, but also a bad influence on Carl, encouraging him to start smoking cigarettes and skipping class. He visits him at his basketball game and celebrates his big win by bringing him up on top of a building to smoke weed, which is something that he didn't do and had never done before. Also, he doesn't like tell his parents where he is, so they're worried sick about him. Dione brings Mary to their hotel room and they have a party of sorts, try on makeup. She braids Mary's hair. They eat snacks. They drink alcohol. They play dress up. And Mary mentions how she should wear something like this to prom. And something about that seems to trigger Dione, as she didn't even know that prom was a real thing. She thought it was something that was only shown in movies. And so Mary invites her to her mother's gala, as it's something like a big party like that, a prom. This is when Dione starts to spiral a bit. I think if we discuss any parts of the movie in which acting suffers, I think particularly Dion's character, I don't think it's the actor's fault. I think there's like a general lack of direction, because that's the main issue with this movie, is that y'all don't know what y'all trying to say, and therefore you don't say it well. But she's like, I can tell that you're the favorite, Mary. You have all these things. You have a mom who cares about you and looks after you, and I can't wait until all this comes out. And Mary, though freaked out, is just like, okay. Sebastian ends up having a similar moment with Carl on the rooftop as they're smoking. Carl asks Sebastian what his mom is like. Sebastian says she wants to be white. All things that are black are off limits. She doesn't talk about her past, so we don't know a whole lot about it. And as Carl takes in that information that essentially him and his sister have been completely erased from her life, he begins to get very reasonably angry. But he takes that overboard by ordering Sebastian to stand up and look over the building and see how far it would go if he were to jump off. Like, look down, yelling at him, berating him. This was a scene, one of those scenes that were actually legitimately terrifying. I got very anxious. Sebastian gets so scared looking over the building that he ends up peeing on himself. And that's when Carl is like, okay, let's pull back. You passed a test, essentially. So now it's time to do something else. That is to go after a bully that had bothered Sebastian at school. Basically, Carl goes up to him, puts a plastic bag over his mouth, and tells Sebastian to throw a basketball on his face. He does it. You hear like bones crashing and shit. But we never come back to this. We never find out if he murdered somebody. We don't know if he just broke his nose. We don't know what happened after that. We don't know if he gets in trouble. We just never came back to that. At the end of the night, Carl goes back to Dione and the hotel is a complete mess. Dione is sulking about how it's so obvious that they're her favorite, particularly Mary. But she tells Carl that their mother is throwing a gala, and since she never got to go to prom, we should go to the gala. So they arrive outside of their home, and Carl asks, are you sure you want to do this? And she's like, sure, of course I want to do this.
I'm so happy.
Let me get that thing! My one, bro! You didn't let me!
Act 3, Cheryl. So come to find out, Neve is not Neve's real name. It is Cheryl. So if you find me saying Neve or Cheryl, just rest assured it's the same person. I'm also going to refer to her light skin family as white family and dark skin family as black family, again, just for ease of understanding continuity. So she sits there and she's telling her white family about how she left her black children because their father is abusive and she had to run away many years ago and had never looked back. White husband is like, how could you just leave them like that? Why didn't you take them with you? Like they're all just so confused. And she's like, what, you're telling me you would have took in 2 black children? They say black children. And it's so funny because they keep saying black. It's not funny. It's really up. But they keep saying black as if it's like a slur. It's like these black children. She's like, if I would have came to you with 2 black children that weren't yours, you would have married me. You would have started a life with me. But she apologizes to them and she's like, look, I'm going to try to get this sorted. Okay. So she meets up with her black children and tries to soothe things over with them. They have questions, one would obviously expect. Notably, what happened to her accent? Apparently, she didn't always talk in this very posh way. Again, in the beginning of the movie, we saw her practicing. Maybe it's something she has to constantly upkeep. They ask if she hates being black, and she says, no, I'm a proud black woman. They ask why she never reached out or tried to find them. What stopped you from trying to talk to them? And she was like, I have no way to defend myself. I left you with your aunt and I thought maybe she would look after you, but she, like, that's rude as hell to just imagine you babysitting your niece and your nephew and that bitch just never comes back. Like, it's unclear who the children end up being raised by, if it ends up being their father or the aunt or like maybe some form of social service system or whatever, but it's obvious that they've had a rough upbringing and there's been a lot of things that didn't go well for them. Dione asks if they are going to move into the big house that she lives in now. They've always wanted to live in a big house, and she immediately dodges that question like, I figured I'd give you both $20,000 so that you can get back on your feet in London until you, like, can you go away, black babies. Carl has some very interesting various emotions while receiving the money. There's like an element of disgust, but also sadness, maybe a little bit of gratefulness, just all tied into one. He did a very good job. Very good job mixing all those emotions as an actor. But eventually he thanks her and says, thank you for the money. And he takes it. And they hold her hand in what seems to be an act of solidarity. But the movie ain't over yet. That night, Neve, Cheryl, whatever her name is, takes her wig off. I see why you kept it on, because your edges withering away. Same, bitch. I just have depression. And so I don't take my wigs off the right way if I'm depressed. And that's wrong, because that's why I'm bald. But it look good when they on. Anyway, but that's when she confesses to her white family about everything, why she left. Again, her old partner was abusive and she left without much planning. She found an opportunity and she took it and she just ran. She believes that her black children are just restlessly curious. They want to know where they come from. They haven't seen their mother. There's no closure. That's why they're here. But they're not going to stay. They're going to go back to London. Ultimately, them appearing and kind of sending us on a whirlwind ultimately changes nothing here. Like, this doesn't change our family. It doesn't change that I'm real and our family is real and we love each other. And the husband is like, you're right. We gotta all stick together. Final act. Family reunion. All seems quiet in the house and slowly going back to normal. That is until night falls and the Negro menace returns in the middle of the night, breaking in through the front door. It's not that they're particularly quiet, quite the opposite. They feel like it's their rightful entitlement to be in this house, especially because it's Dion's birthday. They're there to celebrate. While the white family sleeps upstairs, they try out their cool toaster, watch their TV, drink their alcohol, put their cell phones in the sink, and never turn the sink off. They're gonna be very disappointed when they find out that phones are waterproof these days. But anyway, now the water keeps running for most of this act. It's some type of motif, some type of theme that I'm missing. I don't know what this is supposed to be in reference to, but just know that anything that's happening, it's with the sound of people sloshing through consistently running water. When the white family wakes up, the black menace is just like, hey, what's up, bro? And don't just act like it's completely normal for them to be in the house. Being that it is Dion's birthday, it is time to celebrate. Let's order Chinese food. Of course, I'm saying this very flippantly, but it's a very intense scene. It is legitimately an incredibly tense scene because at this point, I'm just like, what? How they gonna end this shit? Like, I'm hooked. I want to know. The white husband tries to defend everybody by saying they didn't know about Neve's past. And that's when the black family says, oh, her name's Cheryl, by the way. So they don't even know what her real name is. Cheryl asks if she should turn the sink off. And Carl is like, just let it run and run and run. The husband tries to calm Carl down, tries to let him know that he kind of understands perhaps why he has so much animosity. But before he can really build connection, Carl connects his nose with his head in a headbutt. Carl yells at all of them to sing Dion's happy birthday. Only some of them know her as Dione, whereas others know her as Abby. Carl suggests that they play Scrabble, a good family game all together. He tells the White family about how Neve, Cheryl, whatever, tried to buy them off. And the White family is like, what the f is wrong with you? Cheryl, overwhelmed with anxiety, throws up into the water, and once she is done, stands upright, paints on a smile, and says, "Let's go, everybody. Let's play some Scrabble. This is how it should be. Us all together as a family." The husband then says he wants a divorce, which was hilarious. And everybody just ignores him. Like, come on, everybody, let's play Scrabble. So they all get together and play Scrabble. It's as uncomfortable as you would think it is until Carl completely loses it and pushes the game into the water. Instead, he says, "Let's me and the husband go work out in that home gym that you guys have. Y'all have so much space here. You have your own gym." Crazy. He threatens the husband to come work out with him with a machete. I don't know when he got a machete, but he got one. Maybe I missed that. I don't know. So they go off to exercise. And right then, the Chinese food arrives. Cheryl goes to answer the door, but first turns off the water at the sink. She walks to the door slowly and hears that her husband is groaning in pain in the gym as Carl slowly tortures him by putting more and more plates on his bench press. Goes to the delivery driver and tells him that it was so kind of him to come so late at night and for being so accommodating that she'll go get him a tip. She goes to get her purse upstairs, continues to scream in agony, until ultimately he can no longer hold the bench press and it crushes down on him, killing him instantly. Cheryl comes back downstairs with her wallet, seemingly unaware of the death of her husband or doesn't care enough to find out. And she says, "Okay, let me go pay that delivery guy." And just then, like she did in the beginning of the movie, she looks at her reflection in the mirror, walks out of the house, and drives off with the delivery man, presumably never to be seen again, leaving all 4 of her children alone. And that is the end of the movie. I'm not gonna lie, the ending made me laugh. I don't know if that was the response you wanted from me, because I don't know what the movie wants from me. I don't know what you want. Like, I'm getting so frustrated. Again, like I was saying earlier, I think the thing that frustrates me the most with this movie is that it was almost a real movie. There's so many parts around it that could have been a real movie, but it doesn't know what it's trying to say. So I don't know what you're trying to say. It's hard to tell if the movie is pro or against colorism. Is it supposed to be this like infinitely relativist tale of just a light-skinned woman doing what she gotta do? Is it supposed to be a commentary on how lighter-skinned Black people, in an attempt to escape their Blackness and to get closer to whiteness, are haunted by their Blackness and harm Black people in the process? I think that's something partially that's important to interrogate here, but I don't know that this movie does that, because they made the dark-skinned kids all of the things that she's afraid of. She was afraid that the dark-skinned kid was giving her son cigarettes, and he was. She was afraid that the dark-skinned kids were like gonna cause harm onto them, and they were. Or is it supposed to be just a story of an individual light-skinned woman and her individual relationship with color and race and class, and how that interacts generally with this, you know, family drama and story of abandonment and trauma? Is it supposed to even be looked at as a movie within the broader conversation of systematic racism, colorism, blah, blah, blah? And if you were to say that this movie is just supposed to be one little thing within that system and not necessarily about it, I think you're wrong and you're stupid. Because this movie is reeking with this kind of, I'm trying to tell y'all something, but it doesn't know what it's trying to tell us. This shit made me mad. Again, I thought if they weren't actual Black people she's afraid of, because now it just devolves into like parody, and I don't think that's what it was going for. I don't know. This movie gave me a headache, but I do want to unleash it onto more people, so feel free to check it out if you want to be mad. Or if you want to maybe enlighten me. Maybe I'm the dense one here. Maybe I don't know what the artist was trying to say. Wouldn't be the first time. If you've seen the movie, you should put your comments down below. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Have a little Socratic seminar situation. If you like this video, feel free to like it. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram, Twitter, both of which are KennieJD. I think my skincare set with Wish Trend is still available. If it is, I'll link that down below so you can get 45% off of the skincare I use, baby. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.